Partner alert here at DNVR. It's Solace Meds. Solace Meds has 4 convenient Colorado locations, one in Fort Collins, one in Wheat Ridge, one off of Broadway, and one just blocks away from the DNVR bar on East Colfax. And they've got some banging deals this month, so check them out. 20% off all Glacier concentrates, 20% off Mile High extractions, 2 for $25 on Koala and Solace 100 milligram bars, and so much more, including buy 3, get 1 free off the entire store. And then check this out, guys. You tell them the code DNVR20, you're going to get an additional 20% off on your entire order at checkout. So check it out, solacemeds.com, SOLACE meds.com. Make sure you purchase from there, and make sure you use that code DNVR20 to save 20% off your entire order at Solace Meds.
Couple with a break, brew and a friend, bleed orange and blue to the bitter end. Come and join us, DNVR. We are DNVR.
We are DNVR, and we are live from Studio B, and we are presented by MSU Denver Online. Check them out, msudenver.edu/online today to scope out all they have to offer. 750 total classes, 45 plus online and hybrid programs. There's something for everyone down there at MSU Denver, and if you're looking to further that education while keeping a full-time job, MSU Denver is the perfect place for you. MSU Denver students work twice as many hours as students attending any other Colorado institution. So make sure you check out MSU Denver today.
My boys, what's up, guys? The Broncos are back, and let the competitions begin.
Yeah, exciting day today. First day, true first day of OTAs for the Broncos. Great attendance out there. And I guess quickly, just a housekeeping note. As you'll see here, our times and stuff that we go live are going to be a little more variable over the next couple weeks as we are mixing it up with, going after practice, and there's media availability. And today they gave you guys an hour of media availability. So there's a lot of stuff on the table. So just keep an eye out. Perfect time to tell you guys to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you can even sign up for alerts so that when we go live, you'll get an alert that says what's going on. And you'll get so you'll never miss one of these lives. So let's actually jump right into this. Mace, I want to start with takeaways from the actual live viewing period. What did we see today?
We only saw 7-on-7 aside from the individual work, and that's something that Vic Fangio said is going to persist here through the first couple of weeks of Phase 3 of OTAs, and that's a significant change compared to what we usually would see from OTAs. We'd typically see some 11-on-11 today, and that's going to be put off for a couple of weeks. You kind of wonder if that's part of teams making deals with the players, as it were, with the whole boycotts going on around the league and so forth. Certainly, the Broncos had great attendance today. Very few absences of note. Justin Simmons was out there. Brandon McManus, who of course is the Broncos NFLPA head, was out there, but. You want to know how the quarterbacks looked, right?
Well, all right, yeah, let's go quarterback. Yes. There's no reason to hold back.
All right, well, Bridgewater, first day in the scheme, looked very comfortable. He's a seasoned vet, but he had pretty good timing for the most part. There was only one play he missed where he was really behind one of his intended targets. The rest of it, he looked settled. He was getting to his second and third reads, and of course, that is kind of what he does. Another interesting thing about Bridgewater versus Drew Lock, when you watch the two of them, they're doing individual drills. One of the differences that jumps out is Drew, he's improved his footwork, but you still see him kind of tapping a little bit, whereas Teddy gets into his base and gets set, and he's a little firmer in his base quicker. Now, when the ball leaves their hands, obviously, Drew throws lasers. It's definitely easy gas coming out. Teddy Bridgewater. A nice job dropping it into the bread baskets and getting it into some tight windows. But that's Teddy. Teddy is the curveball slider guy, and Drew's the fastball pitcher. And both of them I thought looked good today.
Yeah.
Drew did take the first snap, though.
He
for
did.
what it's worth.
Every single time they went out there to start 7-on-7s, Drew took the first snap. So the coin fell his direction. And guys, we thought that's how it probably should have been because Drew's the incumbent. And heck, Teddy got there today. He met Drew for the first time today, which means he probably met every other receiver for the first time today. But he did not look like a guy that was getting on the job an hour before practice started. He did look like he knew he was doing. He was steady. He was calm going through all of his progressions. It was pretty crazy to see him on multiple plays go from the right side all the way to the left and then finally just dumping it off. What I saw today was Teddy pushing the ball downfield more and Drew just taking those easy passes. And that's okay for Drew to be taking those easy passes. I was surprised to see Teddy was the one going downfield, and Teddy had success going downfield when he went deep as well.
With who?
With Jerry Jeudy he hit once, and Drew though staying within 5 yards. I mean, I want to say the first 10 passes, maybe one of them was past 5 yards, but I'm okay.
Starts overcorrecting and trying to be the extra safe guy, and he's also not creating any splash. Well, then if Teddy's able to make the right decisions pushing the ball down the field, he's going to win this job.
Right. It's a great point. And Teddy wasn't, I think he had 3 deep balls, and they weren't contested catches. I mean, it was very much taking a safe option deep,
right,
but it still was gaining 25, 30 yards on those completions, which you're right. I think that's what people are afraid of with Teddy, just being steady. It's the steady 4-yard completions that he gets. I think you're 100% right, Ryan. That's a good point. I didn't think about that when I was watching it either. Is if he's steady in the way where maybe it's not 60-yard completions, but if it's 25-yard completions, that's going to be enough to say, okay, he's got the juice.
And there was a play right at the end. They kind of pulled the media. They said, okay, got to log in for the press conference, but then had a couple more periods left, and so I got my setup, and then I went back and watched some of the last reps, and there was one right at the end where Teddy had Tyree Cleveland going toward the corner, and it was a perfect throw, but you had Pat Surtain arrive a little bit too soon. Would have been clear DPI, but if not for DPI, that's a touchdown. Did a nice job on that ball.
And speaking of Pat Surtain, really quick, guys, Vaughn Miller, we know he's free to praise a lot of people. He went out of his way, though, to praise one person and one person big time, and that was Pat Surtain. He said, I look over my shoulders to see who's behind me, and I thought it was an edge rusher because he's so big. Said he's a stud, already referring to him as PS2. Vaughn Miller has given his stamp of approval already to Patrick Surtain.
It's been a while since we heard from Vaughn.
It has been.
He had a lot to say today.
Yeah, how did it go?
Well, I mean, Vaughn you can't tell how stressful this offseason has been for him. You can't at all. He says he's in a great mental standpoint, and from the 12 minutes we talked to him today, it really did seem like it, which is really good. And the expectations for Vaughn, do you guys remember the expectations last year for Vaughn at about this time when he was just a man on fire, looking really good?
Oh, yeah.
Those are the expectations for him again right now. He said, I don't think I can actually say this on the pod, but he said... you
can say whatever you want.
He said, I'm beating everyone's ass.
Oh, you can definitely say that.
Okay.
He had a couple of times he worked blue today.
And he says, and he says, 30 what? So like, what does that mean?
30 sacks.
Exactly.
That's what we want.
He's also very sick of losing to Kansas City. I mean, I was kind of, in some way, I was proud of asking the question that where I got him to say that he was tired of that shit. Pardon the expression.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Hey, whoa, you got on me last time I said
I know.
that.
Well, now that I'm seeing where the line is, I mean, we're not going to be under FCC jurisdiction. I'm sorry, kids, although you should be in school if you're, instead of watching this, but I digress.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can, if it's a quote, we're not slinging F words around.
The exact quote was, we lost the Kansas City Chiefs 5 years in a row. I want to change that shit.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, how everyone feels.
I mean, everyone feels that way. And that's kind of the big, I don't know. It's like you look at Drew and you look at Teddy and you go back to this quarterback debate, and the people who are going to support Drew Lock in this are going to say, look at Patrick Mahomes. Look at Justin Herbert. Heck, look at, Derek Carr even to a lesser extent. How are you going to compete with those guys with Teddy Bridgewater. If you're going to compete with them, you have to believe in the brightest timeline for Drew Lock. And of course, we know Drew is extremely talented. If it ever just all clicks for him, he has the abilities to get into that conversation. The people who are going to talk about Teddy Bridgewater are going to say, well, look how close we played the Chiefs in that second game. Like, it's not about trying to beat them on offense. It's about trying to beat them on defense, playing smart and not giving away points when they're on the board. Of course, Drew Lock throws that interception in scoring range on the very first drive of the game, which ends up looming large. So there's like a whole debate here. I'm curious I know where you guys think the coaching staff stands, but Mace, where do you stand on this debate? Is Teddy Bridgewater good enough to score enough points against a team like the Chiefs to give the defense a chance to win you the game?
If he can complete enough passes downfield, yes. And I think that was one reason why it was intriguing to see him push it downfield as he did. It was almost like he's trying to answer the one question that you might have about him. And he's going to make good decisions 5, 10, 15 yards downfield. But what does he do that forces the defense in coverage to stretch itself out a little bit more? That I think is what completes the picture for him, because it's been the thing that he's been missing. And Vic Fangio kind of pointed to what he did in New Orleans coming in for Drew Brees. Bridgewater talked about what he learned the last couple of years being with the Saints and then with Joe Brady in Carolina, who comes from out of that New Orleans scheme as well, so they have similar concepts. Can he kind of take it to the next level? The thing, both these quarterbacks have some work to do. Drew, of course, has to be more settled, has to be more accurate. There were a couple of throws that he missed today that certainly he would want back, even though he was mostly taking the short and easy stuff. Teddy needs to push it downfield more. So they're both missing some things, and it's almost like they're both running their races, but whoever gets to their finish line first and shows that they have the thing that they're missing in their game is the guy who's going to win the job.
Well, and so to go back to your original question, Ryan, Garrett Bowles had a really interesting quote, and I think it's exactly what I think a lot of people think about the Broncos. He said, "We have so many deadly players on offense. All we have to do is get the ball in their hands. If we do that, the NFL better watch out." And isn't that what we say about this Broncos offense? How much talent it has, but you need to get that talent, the ball in their hands. And so I think that, to answer your question, I think Teddy can be the guy to get the ball in their hands 5, 10, 15 yards downfield. Like Mace mentioned, Drew has the zip, but Teddy has the touch, I guess, but he was getting the ball into some tight windows today, which I wouldn't have actually expected him to be able to do without the zip that Drew has. So I was impressed with that. And Drew's arm, it's as live as it's ever been, guys. And Drew's mentality is exactly what you want it to be right now. He is 100% focused on himself. He's not listening to the noise. He says if someone texts me to inform me of some quarterback rumors, I don't text them back. They're not someone that's in my inner circle. That's not someone I need to deal with. The people close to him in his inner circle know how hard he's working, and don't alert him of the Aaron Rodgers news, and don't alert him of potentially drafting Justin Fields in the first round. He doesn't care about that. He cares about himself. He's only focused on himself. And when he was asked about the Aaron Rodgers potential still, he said, I was concerned about my 7-on-7 reps in practice today. So it's the attitude you want, but it's definitely an FU attitude coming from Drew to us, to anyone that doesn't believe him, and to anyone that's going to doubt him in any way.
I know it's dangerous to kind of get into somebody's demeanor, but Drew definitely seemed much more businesslike in his press conference today than we've seen from him.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I feel like, and maybe this is a good thing, some of the happy-go-lucky, at least in terms of the public persona, has been kind of knocked out of him a little bit. Maybe he's been humbled to some degree. And his response has been to not only cut out the noise, but to put himself on what he described was a pretty strict regimen and routine every day in terms of what he's doing, in terms of throwing, what he's doing in terms of studying. He said one of the things that he wanted to do was kind of get new routine. So what do you say? It was like Groundhog Day?
Yep. It's been Groundhog Day this year, just getting up. And I asked him, and he pretty much detailed his day from waking up early. He's coming in the facility multiple times, then going home, watching film. He has film set up in his basement. It's everything you want to hear. And that's what we've kind of heard. But to hear it from Drew's voice, and just also the no BS mindset right now.
You used the term an FU attitude from him.
Yep.
I want to drill deeper on that. Why? What do you think, like, where's that coming from? What did he say that kind of gave you that impression?
I mean, it was everything that he said. And, if people text him and say, hey, have you been hearing any of this Aaron Rodgers news? He won't respond to them. And he's only keeping people close to him in his conversations now. And so he's really pushing everyone away from him that doesn't believe in him, because that's what he wants right now, is just that type of energy. And it's really him against the world. And I thought a very interesting thing was he said, I was bettering myself this offseason so that whether I'm here or not, so obviously he heard noise of potentially him going somewhere else, or whether that was trade, whether it was another team coming for him, or what that was. He said, I was getting myself ready for that, and kind of left that open-ended. And I thought that was kind of a message to the Broncos as well of, look, if you're going to give up on me, fine. I'm going to be better for this next team.
I love it.
Yeah.
I really do love it. I think that, so many guys in the NFL come in with like the chip on their shoulder attitude. And while Drew, kind of fell to the second round and wasn't sure, I don't feel like he's necessarily had a chip on his shoulder attitude. Obviously, when he got to Missouri, it was only a matter of time before he became the starter. When he got to Denver, it was only a matter of time before he became the starter. And for the first time here, I think he's really being questioned, and I think he's really being pushed in a way that he probably hasn't been pushed very often in his life, in the sense of, look, it's not going to be smooth sailing for your football career right now. So what response do you have? And we talk about the NFL. It is a league of punches and counterpunches. He punched pretty hard as a rookie, came out really well. He got counterpunched really hard coming back last season. And now the question is, does he have the next push? Does he have the next punch? Is he going to be the one to throw the next punch? Or is the league, which takes no prisoners, going to be the one to, get him last year and then get him again this year and really end his career as a starter?
Well, it's funny, like we kind of talk about the FU mentality, and I find myself flashing back to the video that was captured of him in the Charger game at the end when he went back to the sideline. And, this is part of growing up, even growing in the last several months, because you don't want the FU mentality to mean mouthing off at the fans, basically, and having to be kind of held back. But you want it to be just kind of, taking it within and building some resolve and saying, okay, here's what I've got to focus on. Here's what I've got to cut out. And now the only thing about that is, you can't, let's say that you wonder who the people that were texting him this stuff about, oh, hey, you hear about Aaron Rodgers, or hey, George Payton.
Kind of a stupid thing to do.
Yeah, George Payton was watching Trey Lance today up in Fargo. I mean, you hope that the people that were texting that were just like, buddies from college and things like that, and not people from the Broncos. And I would imagine so, because I don't want him to have his circle so narrow that it's not wide enough to include everybody in that locker.
Yeah, and absolutely, I agree with you. I don't text you guys and say, hey, did you hear who may replace you? I mean, I just couldn't imagine anyone doing that. That's so weird.
Who'd you hear?
And guys, on the flip side, Teddy is taking a similar approach that, this is his job. He wants it, but in a very, very different way. And kind of the way to sum that up is today when Von Miller met him, according to Teddy, Vaughn told him, you're here to play football. And he said, that's the approach I'm taking. That's my mindset, is I'm here to play football. So that's his approach, but it's certainly not an FU mentality, guys. He's coming in very steady. I mean, that's just what I'm going to call him. On and off the field, steady Teddy. I don't think it's better than Drew. I don't think it's worse than Drew. It's just a completely different approach of who he is and who he's going to be, but he does expect at the end of the day to be the starting quarterback.
Yeah, he does, and I think he's also a guy who, even though he's only been in the league now going into his 8th season, this is a guy who has seen pretty much everything there is to see, except literally playing in a Super Bowl. I mean, as far as he's seen the highs, he's gotten a team to a division title. He's seen the lows. He's been pushed out as he was in Carolina this past year. So I wouldn't say it's a world weariness, but certainly it's a guy who he's not going to go up and down like a seismograph in an earthquake. I think maybe people around the team, certainly outside the team, might do that. But even though we're going to be chronicling these guys and what they do every day and kind of saying the ups and downs, this is Teddy. Whether he has a good day or a bad day, it's just going to be kind of like this. And the interesting thing then becomes, what helps this team more? Is it the highs and the lows of Drew Lock, or is it steady Teddy?
It's very interesting. And I think one of the biggest challenges for Drew Lock in this competition is going to be keeping the locker room. Because from everything I've heard and from those I've talked to, Teddy Bridgewater is like one of the most loved dudes in the NFL, from dudes he's played with, from people he just runs into in the offseason.
He's Ferris Bueller.
He's friends
He really
with,
is.
Yep.
He's friends with every person in every clique. They all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
That was actually one of my takeaways from this, was just how much Von Miller, Garrett Bowles, how they're already praising Teddy. And they're not saying anything bad about Drew, but I thought the praise was going to be the other way, because Teddy's just meeting these guys today. And I thought a lot of the talk was going to be, and I gave him opportunities to ask or to say great things about Drew. And it's not that they didn't, but I was just surprised how glaring or how much that praise was for Teddy today.
Yeah. I mean, this dude, like you said, everyone knows him. Everyone loves him. Anyone he's ever played with, I think, gosh, I wish I could remember it. Someone on the Saints said he's the best teammate they've ever had. Like, this locker room is going to fall for him.
Right.
And they already do like Drew. You know,
Yeah,
Von Miller
absolutely.
loves Drew. He called him an effing rock star one time. You know, like, it's just going to be, I think it's going to be hard as the competition gets going and gets rolling for Drew to keep some of these guys. Because I just think naturally these guys are going to really gravitate towards Teddy. You know, even let's go back to his injury in Minnesota. Dudes were crying on the field. Like, the reporting that came out of that was crazy, because they loved Teddy so much and they hated seeing him like that. So that's going to be a challenge. This is going to be a really good competition, I have a feeling. Like, watching this and following this and quarterback scoreboard and all that stuff is going to be really, really interesting, because I think there's a lot of different stuff in play here.
And you know what's really interesting? You mentioned the Minnesota thing. Rewind back to 5 years ago. That year, the Vikings were a trendy Super Bowl pick with Teddy, quarterback.
For sure.
People thought that team with him was enough. And so we're now 5 years removed from that. And realistically, it took Teddy about 3 years to be back to somewhat normal. So, and I think this is part of what George Payton was thinking when he realized Teddy might be available and could bring him in, is thinking back and saying, you know, this thing was at the brink of exploding before Teddy got hurt. Is he all the way back to where he was? And now certainly he's 5 years older, more mature, et cetera. And that's something that I think bears watching. And, you know, you can't deny how much guys love him. The other thing is, and there were a couple of things. First of all, Judy dropped a pass today. Everyone's going to go, oh my God. It was from Teddy. You know what Teddy did next play? Went right back to him.
Love that.
Absolutely love seeing that.
Drew did that in a game one time, and it ended up in, 6 drops for Judy? He just kept going back to
But that's the kind of thing that a veteran does.
No,
okay?
for sure.
Okay, you know what? I know this guy's a really good player. He's going to figure out, you know, keep feeding him. And the other thing that kind of jumps out, and I bet you we're going to hear this said by a player in the next few weeks. I was telling Zach this is practice. We're going to hear at least one player probably say he throws a very catchable ball.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a pillow.
That just means he throws
like
it soft.
Right.
Yeah, but that's who else threw a catchable ball? It was Peyton Manning.
For sure.
And one thing, going back, I went back and looked at some of my notes on Bridgewater coming out of Louisville from 2014, and I went back and one thing that was in there was how often he dropped the ball into tight windows and just, it was gentle.
Yeah.
And the way he dropped the ball into those windows, actually reminded me a little of Peyton, except it was a little tighter. It was a tighter spiral. So I'm not saying Teddy is Peyton Manning. I'm just saying
There you go.
that
Teddy Bridgewater is
particular
Peyton Manning.
attribute
Andrew
of Teddy
Mason.
Bridgewater at Louisville reminded me of Manning, and he still has that. He does drop it in really nicely.
Yeah, there's no question. He has the touch. And one thing that I think is going to be key for Drew is to not force being what he thinks other people want him to be. Like, not just throw it 5 yards past the line of scrimmage.
Right.
He's going to have to play his game. And you know what, guys? If he can't do that, if he can't push the ball downfield and also take the checkdowns at the necessary time, then that just means that he doesn't have what it takes to be an NFL starter. I don't want him to, or just start, after he hears some noise, just start pushing the ball downfield and just do that. I want him to not hear any outside noise from now and just listen to his coaches. I liked seeing him go short today a lot, but I do want to see him open that up as well.
All right, guys, let's quickly move away from quarterbacks here. I just want to touch on any other notable observations you might have had from today.
Well, I mean, since Mace mentioned Jerry Jeudy dropping a pass, you also had Tim Patrick drop a pass, which you never saw last year, which was just crazy because, I think Mace, I think the Jerry Jeudy one happened first, and Mace is going, it's not a big deal at all, which it's not a big deal at all right now.
But I know how people are going to get worried when they hear Jerry Jeudy drop the pass. I'm like, oh no.
But then you just have to realize, okay, Tim Patrick, who never dropped a pass last year, dropped a pass in practice.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this from a more like bird's eye view. In a game, what's like 10 targets is a lot in a game, right?
Yeah.
In a practice, you get 20, 30, 40 targets, as you're just going through different drills and whatnot. So, you're just like dropping a ball in a practice is nothing.
Right. Yeah. It's not nothing. Some other things from practice today. You had Dalton Reisner wasn't there because he has COVID. Expected to be back potentially by Thursday, so nothing to worry about there. Bradley Chubb did have surgery, I believe, at the end of last week, guys, to remove some bone spurs in his ankle. Vic Fangio said, quote, today it was a very good procedure, so it went well. He expects him to be ready for training camp. But I'm a little worried now, just naturally, because anytime you hear expects to be ready for training camp for a guy that missed 2 games because of this injury last year at the end of the season, and also we know his injury history, that's just concerning to me.
Why did it take so long to get the surgery?
Vic said they thought it was just going to heal on its own and not be an issue, but throughout the offseason, it would bother him sometimes, it wouldn't bother him at other times, and they waited till now. Yeah, you don't like hearing that they waited.
I mean, basically, you're waiting because surgery is sometimes just a last resort. You always want to see if things are going to heal on their own, especially in the off season. If this were the regular season, I imagine they would have pulled the trigger and had the surgery right away. With the off season, you just want to see if it heals without having to have a procedure and any complications or anything like that. So the other thing is, like you mentioned, he missed time with it last year, and just Chubb's injury history is lengthier than you'd like. So anytime you're talking about a Bradley Chubb injury, you get concerned. I mean, it's sort of the same thing with Drew Lock. He's had 2 multi-week injuries in the last 2 seasons. You have to discuss that with these guys.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Some more guys that weren't there. Kyle Fuller, Mace asked Vic about it, and he said, I don't know where he is. So maybe Kyle Fuller is choosing to sit out 1 practice of OTAs. Maybe he'll be back tomorrow. Maybe he won't be here until mandatory minicamp.
Nice opportunity for Pat Surtain as a result, because you saw
it is.
Surtain, Ronald Darby, Bryce Callahan all out there getting plenty of run.
We've got a super chat here from DTL. We really appreciate all super chats.
Yes.
Says you got to mention that Vaughn take on Fant.
Yes, and this was another. I mean, we said Von Miller was on fire today, and I want to get the exact quote right here.
It said, Noah Fant is my favorite guy on the team. Mm-hmm. That's how he opened it.
Yep.
And he said, another part of that quote, he looks like a beast.
Yep. And then he also said Noah Fant and Alberto, his words, can be Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski on the field.
I believe we've said
Stole that from us.
Yes, a few times over the years.
I mean, so the praise from Vaughn on Fant and Patrick Surtain was pretty mind-blowing today.
You think Pat Shurmur's listening, though? I mean, we know how Shurmur likes his 3 wide, but look, your best set might end up being 2 tight ends, Pat.
Yeah, I don't know. Very skeptical on Pat Sherman. Very skeptical.
Figure it out, Pat.
All right, where were you going on other standouts?
On other standouts, so Patrick Surtain.
Other guys who weren't there. Melvin Gordon.
Yes, Melvin Gordon was also not there. He told Mike Kliss over the weekend that he's going to be doing his own thing, just like he's been doing. So I would imagine that means not showing up until mandatory minicamp. So a guy who you expected to see a lot of play today, Javonte Williams. It was really a heavy dose of Royce Freeman today, running with the ones, but I think that'll quickly transition to number 33.
I gotta say this is weird, kind of weird for Melvin. I feel like he's been doing a lot of work to kind of endear himself and really like prove that this is his show, and not showing up and saying like, oh, I just want to do my own thing is just not, in my opinion, not the best move for a guy who now I think is in a bit of a position battle.
Well, and Ryan, it especially because this is the OTA season that is going to have the most eyes on who's there and who's not because of the potential boycott. Now it's not a boycott anymore. You have Justin Simmons, Kareem Jackson, Brandon McManus, the three guys that were kind of trying to, they're all there now, and that you have less than 10 guys that aren't there. So people are just going to be paying attention to this. Next week, we're going to talk about how, okay, these guys still aren't here. And if Melvin Gordon's one of them, we're going to talk about it every single week that we have practice. And like you said, Javonte Williams, he's a guy that's going to push him for his job, maybe mid-season, maybe week 1, maybe in training camp, and not being there does not help you in any way. Coaches value every single minute of practice you can have, and so that it does have to be a tick against him.
Basically, you don't want to give the coaches an excuse to think that they can live without you.
Yep.
And
right.
That's what could happen. I mean, obviously they like Mike Boone on special teams, but they like the fact that Mike Boone averages over 5 yards per carry for his career as well.
Yep.
And what Melvin is doing, unfortunately, is he's leaving the door ajar for Pat Shurmur and Curtis Modkins and everybody else on the offensive side to say, hey, we can function without you. And that's why I don't think it's advisable for him to sit out. And is it a little bit paranoid? Yes, but the NFL is a world of paranoia. Like Bill Parcells said, it's not a game for the well-adjusted.
Yeah, it reminds me of something my grandpa used to tell me. He ended up retiring with like tons of paid leave that he didn't use. And he said, I never took more than 1 week of vacation per year because if they can live without you for 2 weeks, they can live without you forever. And like, that's funny. It's like an old school take.
I think that way.
Yeah, I mean,
like if I was gone for like 2 weeks from this podcast, I'd be like, oh, I guess are they going to be able to say they can live without me? I mean,
but why 2 weeks instead of 1?
Oh, that's
1 week. That's
one week is nothing, and and you and I both, Zach, when we're taking weeks off when hopefully nothing is happening. Like
hopefully,
yeah.
But it just goes into the idea of like you're giving the coaches an opportunity to fall in love with someone else.
Yeah.
And they want to fall in love with Javonte Williams.
Yep.
Like they brought him here to later replace you.
Yep.
So if I were there, if I were him, I would be there every step of the way trying to prove to them that this guy's not ready to pass me.
And it's clear the holdout's over. The holdout is not happening. So now this is, instead of a team decision, this is now individuals' decisions to not be there. So that's how it will be viewed. And when talking about Kyle Fuller missing, Vic said, it is optional. And that's just about the company line that he'll take there. But with 9 guys missing, that shows you that with only 9 guys missing, that shows you just how crucial these practices are. And a guy that really impressed me today was Cortland Sutton, not because of the amazing passes he was catching and things he was doing like that, but he is still wearing a brace on his knee, but it looks very small. I mean, it looks like the smallest brace you can have, and he looks like he doesn't even have a brace on the way he's moving around.
Smallest brace ever. I like it.
So that's very good news in his rehab. I think we're going to talk to him sometime this week, but everything we've heard is that he hopes to be pretty close around training camp.
And they got a new punter.
Ah, yes. The Madden chat was very excited for you.
Yeah, my guy Max Duffy from Kentucky won the tryout. He's wearing jersey number 15. And, he's got a cannon, but he's also a placement guy, and he was working basically on kicking to the right and kicking to the left. I feel like I'm about to go back into Tom McMahon soliloquy mode here, but there were some punts like where he's getting it 50 yards and it's going right to the sideline. There's no room for the returner to catch the ball, and I'm thinking Miggs probably likes this an awful lot.
And you can save $2 million if you keep him. So this could be a legit competition at punter.
This is interesting because, like you mentioned, the $2 million, and I hate to bring it back to Aaron Rodgers, but if you bring him in, you're looking for
Little
$1 million
places,
here,
yeah.
$1 million there to kind of make all the pieces fit, and that's something that would probably be an easy $2 million off the budget.
Don't hate to talk about Aaron Rodgers.
No, but today is about Teddy and Drew.
Mm-hmm.
They're that is the competition today. Today is about number 3, number 5.
there is a big but because Aaron Rodgers didn't show up to Packers today.
He's living his best life in Hawaii right now.
Imagine like your teammates. Doesn't that feel weird?
When you're not
like
there.
all of your teammates are there grinding and sweating, and they see like the video of you like singing karaoke and playing Wagon Wheel with Miles Teller and
with the man bun too.
Yeah, like I don't know. He really gives no F's about what anyone thinks about this, and he's just like, especially the Packers. He does not care if they're going to be upset with him. Like, I don't think he really cares what his teammates think.
He doesn't
those teammates specifically.
He's already talked to the teammates that
and
are
told
kind of
them
in his circle, and he's told them
he's out.
He doesn't just look like a guy that's okay with not going back to the Packers. He looks like a guy that would be okay doing something else in his life,
like hosting Jeopardy.
Exactly.
Or joining a band.
Right. Or just living in Hawaii, retiring.
Yeah. I mean, he has no reason to keep playing football. Like, it's not like he needs the money or anything.
He's happy without
legacy,
it right
maybe?
now.
Legacy.
It's what it's all about. And I think there's the things that you wonder went through his mind as he's watching Tom Brady and the Bucs run out the clock in the NFC Championship game. As he's just looking out there on the field, seeing the Bucs happy, seeing Brady celebrate. And I think that's the kind of moment that's frozen in his head right now. Why have I not been able to experience that? I mean, in his mind, he's saying, I know at this point in my life, I'm better than him, and he's going to the Super Bowl.
I think the only thing that's frozen and in his head is a margarita.
Little brain freeze.
But I do think that's the one thing he has left on the table is legacy. He needs to shut guys like Zach up about how he was overrated and didn't win enough Super Bowls. And to be fair, he's got one. It's the same thing Peyton was dealing with late in his career. There's one thing stopping Peyton from being in the GOAT conversation is that you could easily pull out the rings. So many guys have one. Very few guys have two.
Yeah, that's kind of the price of admission. Look at Drew Brees. He's got all sorts of records. He only has the one ring. Brett Favre rewrote the record book while he played. He only got the one ring. It's what kept him going, but then Brett Favre ultimately was his own worst enemy when it mattered most, throwing across his body in the NFC Championship game and getting picked off by, was it Tracy Porter who got that ball, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was. But guys, I mean, I think it's fitting that we're talking about it because one, he was in the news today, didn't show up, and two, the buzz is not leaving the Broncos. It's everywhere you go, and it's not going away. Maybe it'll die down if June 2nd comes and goes. Maybe it'll stay just as hot, especially if Aaron Rodgers continues not to show up, doesn't show up for mandatory minicamp for the Packers. But, I mean, players are just going to continue to be asked about Aaron Rodgers, a guy that's not even on their team right now.
Yep. It's going to be really interesting. T-minus 7 days.
A week.
1 week from today, we might have a little more clarity on this.
Well, that's the 31st, right?
Yep.
8 days.
So that's the first and the second.
9 days.
So, yep. It's 9 days until you can make a move, but you have to imagine we'd hear something.
Yeah.
Maybe over the weekend. The way these things get out.
I do think we're going to start to see it bubble. If it's going to happen right after the deadline.
Right.
It might not. The Packers might say, like, look, you can miss minicamp and do whatever you want. Like, we're going to wait you out on this. And
you got to pay us if you do.
yeah, and I truly think that Aaron is just going to be like, cool, I'm going to Cabo next. And then after that, we're going to Jamaica.
Maybe part of a signing bonus to host Jeopardy full-time can be the Jeopardy paying back the Packers for him retiring early.
Well, he hasn't given up any money yet. The money doesn't start being deducted from his account unless he's not there for minicamp in mid-June. So,
but if he retires, what is it? $17 million that he would have to pay them back?
I think it was upwards of 30.
it's 20. I think it's 29.8 million.
Yeah.
Just build that into your Jeopardy
Yeah.
pay.
So the Packers get that cash, but if they
like
were to trade Aaron Rodgers, and we know that even a second round pick is worth $16 million, as the Browns established 4 years ago. So, if the Packers were an organization in financial trouble, I'm sure that 29.8 would be like the thing. Okay, let's get that cash. Let's get that cash back.
Right.
But they have a $400 million cash reserve. So
Right.
I don't think they're concerned.
They're completely fine there, and they would, I think, unless they kind of pull the thing that the Texans did, which was like pride over being smart,
Right.
Well,
That could happen, especially in the NFL.
And
you know
there's-
the egos there.
and that's where you wonder, okay, what is the impact of not having a true owner there?
Yeah.
Now, is it possible that they dig in, or the fact that they don't have a true owner, but they have a board of directors who may think more logically rather than more emotionally, the way the Texans are, for example.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Interesting stuff. Well, of course, we'll be on top of it all, and we've got plenty more to talk about in the rest of the podcast, which we will be doing on the podcast side of things. If you haven't checked out our podcast, you'll get the second half there. You can get it anywhere you listen to podcasts. All you got to do is type in Broncos. We're the first one that comes up. So, yeah, that's going to wrap it up for us on the live side of things. We'll see you over on the podcast side.